Hello, my name is FreebieWits, and welcome to another random rant by me, FreebieWits, as I mentioned before. And we're continuing on from last week's guide to adventuring, more specifically, Warren's guide to adventuring. So, for those of you who don't know, Warren was my LARP character who is now long since dead. But in the meantime, while he was still alive, he did write a couple guides to adventuring from his perspective. So anyways, I'm going to read the foreword and I'm going to interject with a few disclaimers here and there, a bit of context when I can, that sort of thing, a bit of commentary, if you would. So, foreword from the actual script I've written. It has been some time since I have written and published the original guide to adventuring, and in that time, many events have transpired that have made me grow both as a person and as a leader. For context, Warren was the leader of his guild. He was sort of thrust into that position. He was, meta-wise, the LARP was dying. There's no two ways about it. People were just leaving and such like that. And my character happened to be the highest ranking member at the time. So, while a part of me feels that I didn't become a leader on my own merit, there were many cases where I managed to kick ass as a leader. So I like to think a bit of it was me being a bit of a badass. A lot of the people at the time really wanted me to be a leader. So that did help with my self-esteem, as it were. So he was the leader. He was sort of thrust into it. Nobody had a choice, I would say, including himself. But I think it turned out for the best considering who was left. Continuing on with the rest of the guide. I won't go as far as to say that I have become jaded, but my enthusiasm for adventure has certainly become tempered. In that regard, if it has given me enough experience and confidence to write another... In that regard, it has given me enough experience and confidence to write another set of guides for any aspiring adventurer to learn from, or for veterans to compare notes with. Note that most of my adventures these days are relegated to leading the fourth wall on various quests and missions with all the support, help, and challenges that would imply. That was the name of the guild, the fourth wall. Once again, it's a position I came to be in charge of. I did not pick the name. I mean, it's growing on me, don't get me wrong, it did grow on me, but at the time, I did not like the name fourth wall specifically. Regardless of the dear reader's own level of experience and resources, I do hope that they can gain some insight or enjoyment from the following list. As with the previous guide, all of the points made below are grounded in my own personal experience or the experience of other adventurers I have met throughout my travels. So, pretty standard disclaimer for any adventuring guide. Not all bits of advice will apply to everyone. Meta-wise, a lot of these bits may apply to people who play tabletop RPGs, so I hope you'll keep an eye out for those. Tea. Delicious. Number 1. When you need something destroyed, fire is usually the way to go. If that fails, use a volcano. Throwing it in an ocean is just asking for it to reappear at a later date. This happens a lot in LARPs and RPGs in general, I find. To that regard, carry flint and steel with you, something that you can use to start fires without the use of magic. Now, in the LARP I played, I substitute flint and steel with 2 bits of foam that were painted to look like flint and steel. Obviously, you're not allowed to start a real fire, in, LARP and stuff, so, just roleplay it, you'll be fine. In the event you need a torch to light a barrel of black powder with, and none are available, keep in mind that people are flammable targets for fire spells. So this is actually something I roleplayed. We were supposed to bring down these gates, and I think we only had black powder barrels for it, and all our mages before we got to this gate had to use all their fire spells, so we were running dry, and nobody could get close enough to use their flint and steel because it needed like a roleplay amount to use it and such like that, and by the time they could get close enough to use their flint and steel, the enemy could kick their ass and kill them before they could finish the little roleplay flint and steel thing. So I did the next best thing. I let myself get hit by an enemy fireball, ran through screaming my head off, going, I'm on fire, I'm on fire, and jumped onto the barrel of exploding powder. Now, my character did die in a big explosion, but in this system I was playing, respawns were a thing, and he knew that, so he wasn't really risking his life, he was just risking a lot of pain, and it worked in a hilarious fashion. My character had a lot of armor, a lot of health, so he didn't really go down that quickly. If he stayed still for like 3 to 5 seconds it would have taken for the flint steel, he probably would have died, but the fact that all he had to do was touch the barrel and jump on it, perfectly fine. And of course he had both his arms free to help block as he ran. It was like, I'm on fire, block the arrow, I'm on fire, block the sword, blew up the gate. I'm very proud of that. Number 2, if you start hearing voices, don't panic. You might not be insane. It could just be one of the following. A, an illusionist. B, a well-hidden producer of sounds, aka a person or magical items. C, a telepath. Or D, ghost, spirit, or otherwise incorporeal / invisible entity, in which case, okay, maybe panic if it's a ghost. I will get onto that in a bit later. Advice number 3. If a disembodied voice offers you physical goods, don't accept. The fact that it's disembodied means it probably can't make good on the promise, at least not anytime soon. And if it tells you to do stuff, don't listen to it either, because frankly, if it were powerful, it wouldn't need your help. It wouldn't be just a voice. If it's promising you power, then it's probably lying. Once again, if it can give you so much power, why is it so weak that it needs someone else to do its bidding? C. If it can't do these things itself because it's trapped, then it's been trapped there for a good reason. Let it be trapped. And finally, if it says that it wants to go somewhere, don't let it go there if it's trapped there. Yeah, I had someone roleplay that they were an invisible voice in like a text chat thingy, and they wanted me to do something. I'm like, no, this sounds dangerous. Why would I do that? Then I'll make your life miserable and destroy everything. I'm like, okay, idea. If you have all this power to influence the real world, why do you need me to do all this stuff for you? And they just couldn't answer. So for all you dungeon masters out there who play D&D and you want to do this sort of thing, you could always explain it as, the incorporeal voice person who has all this power can't do it because the place they need the doing stuff in is warded against them. Oh, I need you to take the ring from this temple, and I can't do it because the holiness of the temple stops me from doing it. In which case, it's like, okay, why would I want an evil person to have this magic ring from this obviously good temple then? There's lots of reasons and justifications why it wouldn't work, but you can change those justifications and reasons to make it fit into a more law-friendly way. To make it more consistent, I should say. Number 4. Never let something or someone magically tamper with your mind, body, soul, memories, or emotions. Tamper being the key word here. So, the main exception for this is if you play D&D, there are spells and stuff that make you super brave and immune to mind control and fear and all that stuff. So that's technically tampering with your mind and soul and body and whatever. Warren specifically put this piece of advice in here because he is a bit biased against magic. He was an enchanter and he was an alchemist, so he could apply magical effects to equipment, he could make magical potions, but he himself was not a mage per se in the I throw fireballs sense. He disliked magic because they were very destructive and such like that. It's like a nuclear scientist who doesn't like nukes still being an expert in the field, as it were. So Warren was much the same way. So when he's saying, don't let it tamper with you and stuff like that, that's where he's coming from. That's his perspective. Number 5, when making a contract, ensure the other party can physically uphold their end of the deal. If you have never seen the other party, refer to rule number 3 in regards to the ghost who makes you do stuff, assume that they either can't fulfill their end of the contract or that they can disappear without upholding their end of the deal. I mean, seriously, like, this actually applies to real life as well. Hey, can you Venmo me $50? I will give you your thing then. Okay, where's my thing? And they're gone. Meet people in person if you need to do a deal. If you're afraid that they're not honest, you can always do it in front of a police station or in public and whatnot. Or in the case of LARPs, do it in front of a guard or some sort of other authority figure, really. Number 6, if someone approaches you with an open hand during a fight, despite already having a weapon, dodge. Because either they could grab you and stop you from dodging a proper attack, it could be a touch of death spell, or a living bomb spell. Now, the last 2 spells are pretty self-explanatory. I touch you, you die. Dead. Or I touch you, we both die. Dead. Dead. With the grabbing and stopping someone from dodging a proper attack, that may or may not apply to all LARPs. You do have to have consent of the other person. In the LARP I played at, generally speaking, you weren't supposed to do that unless the other person consented. So, I would recommend if you want to be sneaky that way, just out of character say, hey, can I do grappling? Holding onto your hand so you don't dodge and stuff like that. Once again, this isn't usually a normal thing to do in the LARPs I've attended, at least, because if you grab someone, you could, I don't know, rip off a piece of armor. You could get your finger caught in one of these loops and hurt yourself and such. There's all, and of course, like, this is not real metal that I'm wearing. My real metal stuff is over there. Generally speaking, most metal armor is rounded some way, so you shouldn't be able to cut yourself, but there are ways to get it pinched and things. And of course, not everyone's perfect. It could get rusty, get sharp edges, try to grab someone and they slip. A blunt cut is devastatingly painful. Just don't do it. So grappling in a lot of LARPs, generally not a good idea, especially if there's chainmail involved and whatnot. Ugh. Yeah, just don't do it. Number 7, don't mess with portals, especially if there's a chance that they can go out of control, which, for the record, they usually do, like 99% of the time. If someone has to keep the portal stable, expect that thing to break. If you have something to keep it stable, expect it to break. If an enemy needs a portal to do something, destabilizing it might also kill you. This is pretty self-explanatory, it just makes sense. Don't mess with portals unless you absolutely really need to. Now, a lot of LARPs will use portals as a sort of narrative device, like, oh, we've got to go to a faraway land and we don't want to deal with the logistics of rations, supplies, going back and forth, setting up supply lines. Let's just use a portal. We're there in the faraway kingdom. Bam, done. Number 8. Never summon anything stronger than yourself. If you have a way to control it, like an item, then assume that it's going to break. If an enemy summons something stronger than itself, assume it's being controlled somehow. Find a way to break said control. Just because it was being manipulated into attacking you doesn't mean it will stop attacking you if you free it. And finally, usually the summoner is invincible if their minion is alive, but go hit them to be sure anyways. This is just my experience with boss fights who summon enemy creatures and whatnot. There's usually some sort of puzzle based around it. The summoner isn't always invincible in these cases, which is why I say hit them to be sure anyways. You just gotta put all aspects into account when you go into any fight, really. Don't dismiss any one possibility. Number 9, rituals in Adrosia. Adrosia being the setting we were in. It's generic Fantasyland 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Rituals in Adrosia have horrible luck when it comes to succeeding. If you must participate in one, be sure to have a backup plan for if/when it fails. Like having armed backup roughly 20 to 30 feet away from the ritual, ready to charge in and fight anything that might be accidentally summoned, and be sure to have the minimum fighting equipment on you, enough that you can defend yourself but not enough to be a huge threat to your backup if you get mind controlled. I was actually accused of meta when I wrote this, and I'm like, it's not meta if it keeps happening. Like, meta knowledge is knowledge that your character would not have. If my character has experienced rituals going terribly wrong every single time, and having everyone within the ritual circle turn mind controlled, or have a bunch of monsters spawn out of it being summoned by accident, then that's not meta knowledge, that's in character knowledge and paranoia that it's going to happen again. Definitely not meta knowledge. Yes, I'm still salty about being called a metagamer when I made this piece of advice. Number 10. If something's blood or other replenishable body part is required to stop some evil ritual, event, or other such calamities, don't just capture that person. Also keep some of the blood/replenishable body part in an alchemical container for later use in case they escape. Don't try storing it in a container that's not airtight, as that will either spoil the component or make it unleash something you shouldn't breathe in, and ensure the container is kept separate from the individual so if they break out or are rescued, you don't have all your eggs in one basket. Now, I didn't write this down, but I would also add on, maybe have a second sample on yourself, because if you store it and a wizard tries to do a ritual on it, which we've established fails 99% of the time, you will lose that blood and it will blow up and you will have no blood and you'll have to go on all these side quests. So having an extra vial on you is not a bad idea. That said, this is one of the cases where metagaming is actually good, in that you know that if you don't have the second sample on you, if you let it fail, and you know it'll fail, because meta knowledge, then your LARP group will have another adventure going. You've just metagamed the LARP group into having a better, more enjoyable time and more adventures, instead of going, hey guys, I have another vial that we can use. We don't have to go on the amazing adventure where we have to get another vial of blood or other spell component. We can just use this. You can just metagame as if your character didn't think of getting it. And that's completely fine. That is one case where meta knowledge is absolutely fine to do. Number 11. If someone asks you what your plan is, smirk and ask them what they think it is. Then start taking mental notes on what they've come up with. This works surprisingly well against enemies who think you're more cunning than you actually are. For me specifically, I've never really pulled this off in LARP properly, but I've pulled this off in D&D a lot as the dungeon master. I'll do something and I'll be like, okay, I have my own plan already, but hey guys, what do you think is going to happen next? And if it's better than what I was planning, I'll go, excellent. And I'll sort of like brainstorm, like, can I improve on this idea? Can I use the idea they have and combine it with my own? I mean, sometimes I will just rip off their idea, and this has the added effect of making the player sound smart. It's like, yes, it was 3 goblins in a trench coat, and they're like, oh, yes, I knew it! And then even if it wasn't supposed to be 3 goblins in a trench coat to begin with, it does help them feel smart, helps them feel listened to, as it were. Number 12. Always have pouches or easily accessible pockets/containers on your person. You never know when you'll need to store something. Seriously. The thing with armor is they don't come with pockets. I mean, you see this thing? Pocket, no, pocket, no, pocket, no. No pockets, right? Always have pouches. And let me show you what I've got. I'll pick that up later. I've got a bunch of pouches right here. Store my potions, store my weapons, and of course each individual pouch has a bunch of stuff. This has all my real life candy. It's been a while since I've opened all these up. It's been a couple months. This has chalk in it to help mark where I've been in a dungeon. I believe this has some string in it. Never know when string will be useful, mostly to mark stuff. This is my flint and steel, I believe. It's made of foam, so it's not real. Oh, and that's my bandages for helping to heal people. I also keep coins. There's like 2 compartments in this big pouch over here that has the candy. So I have out of character candy, which sometimes is in character. It's kind of fluid that way. And I've got in character gold and resources in here. And of course, like, just because it's supposed to contain chalk and whatever doesn't mean I can't put other quest-related items in my pouches. They're pockets, not safes that can only hold one specific thing. They're very useful, and I enjoy it so much. Number 13, instead of fighting something head-on, try pushing them into a hole, trap, or other terrain-based hazard. Alternatively, someone bigger, stronger, and hopefully more violent than you. Just ensure you do it in such a way that the bigger, stronger, more violent someone won't team up with the original person to take you down. Running, in that regard, is a very important skill. So, I actually have a story about this. There was a big fight tournament thingy. It was like a big ritual. I don't remember the exact context. And I never considered myself the best fighter. I was pretty good defensive, but if you never throw out a punch, you're never going to win, right? I managed to get one of my enemies talking during this big duel, and they were definitely a better fighter than I was, and we were sort of circling each other, right? And I kind of got it into their head that they could monologue, and they were monologuing, and then while they were in the middle of it, I just used an attack called knockback, which was one of the skills you could learn in LARP, and then the enemy would have to take 3 steps backwards, and I knocked them off a cliff. It was hilarious. Like, they just did not see it coming at all. They were going on, and this is why I will win. Because you knock back. It was fantastic. I wasn't the one who won the entire battle, mind you. Like the entire tournament thing, but that was very memorable to me specifically. Yeah, keep know your surroundings. Number 14. Never say any of the following unless you want to tempt fate. You and what army? How bad could it get? Is that all you got? This is going to be easy. After this, I'm going to get married and or retired, or married and retired. Nothing can ruin this day. Seriously, if nothing else, you will paint a target on your back. Don't do this if you play D&D or any other kind of tabletop RPG, because the Game Master will definitely take this as an invitation to ruin your day. 15. Learn how to dodge, block, parry, and avoid damage in a fight. You'd think this was common sense, but apparently not. I've met people who just rely on their hit points to see them out. Goes, if I hit them fast enough, they will die before I do. And that works to a certain degree. But blocking is still very important, and you got to do it properly, because if I block you, right, pretend I have a sword. If I block you and your sword still hits me, then you've got to learn how to block properly. So, put it further out. So even if it does like kind of curve, it doesn't actually hit you in the shoulder. Because I've seen people where they block really close to their bodies, and they still get hit anyways, because even though a part of their sword or shield catches the enemy's weapon, it still doesn't help, because there's a bit of force going behind it. So in that regard, you'll find your rhythm. You'll kind of learn eventually, anyways. Moving along, if you're hired as a mercenary and the opposing side tries to offer you more money after you've accepted the original contract, always deny it. If you do accept it, then your new employer will know that you're likely to betray them for more pay since you've done it before, and that's not a reputation you want. Now, there are ways around this, of course. And this requires a bit of your inner lawyer to pull off. So if someone says, okay, I'm paying you guys to protect this bridge. If the bridge is already destroyed and the enemy wants you to back away and leave your allies to die, in theory, you don't have to stick around because the bridge is gone. Oh, I'm supposed to protect the bridge. I'm not supposed to team up with you guys. You were just protecting the bridge together. And now that there's no bridge, I'm out. That is fine to do, but you still have a reputation of ducking out on the people that you fought side by side with. So sometimes the spirit of the lore is more important. This mostly applies to characters who can respawn. If you can't respawn, then maybe ducking at that moment is fine. And if respawn doesn't exist in that universe, the only people who are going to really know that you're ducking out is the enemy who wins in the first place. And I don't think they'd really blame you, especially if it was, doomed from the beginning and the original reason why you're there is gone. There's a lot of nuance to it, I suppose. Just my point is, don't betray your contract. Your word is your law. Because the moment you start saying, the deal is off, kill them all, everybody's gonna be very hesitant to take you at your word from then on. Nobody is going to think, oh, he made a deal with me, he's going to keep it. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen very often afterwards. Especially if you do it multiple times. You will be considered not very honorable. Very common sense stuff, honestly. Number 17, try to always have an exit strategy or an idea/plan on how to leave an area. There's no point in completing a quest if you can't come back for the reward. Number 18, setting fire to a flammable enemy might seem like a good idea, but if they're tough, you'll not only be fighting a tough enemy, but also one that is now on fire. I did mention me blowing myself up when I was on fire, right? It's pretty funny. In the LARPs I have played at, this isn't really an issue. It's just something I thought would be funny to put in. If you set an enemy on fire, they're no more or less scary to fight just because they're on fire. If they have hit points, they're still going to try and hit you back. Number 19. Most drinking establishments in Adrosia are enchanted against fire and other magical hazards. Because of this, they make ideal defensive positions in a pinch. I mean, seriously, in a universe where you have a bunch of egotistical, strong-headed adventurers, about a third of which can shoot fire from their fingertips, any bar which lowers their inhibition with alcohol is bound to have this sort of defense mechanism in place. Because if they don't, then it's very quickly going to be a situation where it burns down. My character has taken advantage of this fact before by buying insurance for his bar, and then inviting everyone to it, and then just watching it burn down. He wasn't allowed to do it again, and all the money was just roleplay money, not money he could use mechanically. And they just said, oh, he bought a proper bar with proper enchantments with it. So he didn't actually benefit mechanically from it at all. I just thought it'd be funny to do it that way. Now, moving on. Number 20. Maps can always be outdated or wrong. Don't depend solely on them, and instead use them as general guidelines. Now, cartographer guilds... The Cartographers Guild are a bunch of weirdos. If you need maps and can't deal with them, I recommend looking through the libraries, even if they're outdated. Just use it as a guideline, like I said. And finally, don't stab maps with your daggers. Maps are expensive, especially in an age where printing presses and the like don't exist. Don't do it. And if you have a character who does do it in a tabletop RPG, call them out on it. Why'd you stab the map, dude? You know how much work went into that thing? Someone cast a repair spell on the map, please. You can use a marker. That's why we have these little figurines for. Use that. Wow, what's wrong with you, man? Number 21. If you ever need help, don't just say, I need help. Look at the specific person you want to help you with the problem and tell them directly what to do. If someone needs help, don't wait for them to ask. Besides being the morally right thing to do, it'll also make them feel indebted to you. This is the whole I believe there is a psychological term for this, like the anonymous effect, the crowd effect. I don't remember what it's actually called. My point is, in a LARP, always try to be the first to act. You're in a live action roleplay where you're role playing as adventurers. These are the sort of people who help when someone calls for help. You're heroes, essentially. Now, I know this doesn't apply to all LARPers and not all people who play in LARPs, but if you're playing an adventurer specifically, just try to think about that, okay? Number 22. If you're looking to make some money, don't try to harvest alchemical ingredients without a proper container. You will just spoil and ruin the ingredients. Most alchemists or denizens of the Magic Guild will have these containers for you to borrow. This is just a mechanic in the LARPs I played, in which unless you have the alchemist skill invested in, you're not allowed to touch alchemical ingredients out in the wild and stuff that you had to scavenge and whatnot. It's just for balance reasons. It stops people from like running out and then giving it all to the potion person. They actually have to go out themselves and pick them up. Number 23, don't mess with the mage camp. In fact, don't mess with any mage's home. If it takes roughly 5 seconds for them to fry you alive, imagine what enchantments and traps they could cast on a place they literally live in. In other words, don't attack Batman when Batman's got prep time. If you have the armor and toughness, don't bother dodging magic from a mage. The amount of damage they can do with their magic missiles is more than the amount of sword strikes you can get in if you're close enough. Warren is a bit biased in this because, once again, he's very heavily armored and tough. But it is effective. Like, unless they have an instant death spell or a spell that deals like half your health or more in one strike, just run up to them. You'll take a hit, and then you can just go whack, 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 whack. It's very system dependent. If each spell does 6 damage or more, and it takes 6 seconds to cast, compared to you who does 6 damage, like, constantly, like, more than 6 damage in 6 seconds, then, oh man, those numbers are weird. My point is, sometimes it's more effective to just run up to them. Even if you do exactly the same amount of damage to each other in the same amount of time, the person with more health is still going to win. In which case, still get in there and go to town on them, is what I say. This only applies, as you might imagine, in one-on-one fights. If they've got another warrior defending them, or if they're surrounded by mages and you don't have backup, then this obviously changes the whole dynamic. Moving along. If you force someone to help you, all you've done is recruit a future traitor. So, I don't necessarily mean they're going to stab you in the back or anything like that at the right time. I'm saying they could just abandon you when you need them most. And you would never have been in that position in the first place if you weren't under the belief that someone would have your back. If I'm on my own doing something, I'll be more careful. If I have backup, I tend to take slightly more risks, because to me they wouldn't be a risk because I've got backup. If that person is going to betray me though, screw that. I'd rather not have them there then. Number 26. If someone blackmails you with a secret, tell them to reveal said secret. Go outside and start telling everyone that this person is trying to blackmail you with the secret. Tell everyone about your secret. Now they have no secrets to blackmail you with, and everyone else will know that they tried to blackmail someone. Warren, once again, from his limited perspective, has done this before, I believe. I don't remember the exact context, but it screwed over the other person something fierce, because everyone was like, oh, he tried to blackmail you. Oh, I better not tell him any secrets from now on, or talk about anything when they're around. This may not apply to everyone, because the secret could be actually something big and life-changing, but it worked for Warren in this case. Number 27. Never charge through a narrow bridge with a group. The thing will either collapse under all the weight, or you'll be grouped up for a big cone of fire. Both have happened to me before. Although with the big cone of fire, that was actually on my side. Like, I was helping hold the bridge with one other guy, and we were very outnumbered, but the bridge was narrow, and off to the side, one of our mages came running up and was like, cone of flame, and hit everybody on the bridge except us because they directed the flame in just a way to stop us from being hit. It was fantastic. As for the collapsing under the weight, well, we were all running across a bridge, and the game master warden person basically says, there's too many of you. You fall down. The bridge is gone. We're all dead. That was not pleasant. But it was fun to run and yell, going, yeah, everybody across the bridge, let's go, woo! That was fun. Number 28, if there's a door/gate/pass that is guarded and there's no way to sneak around, try politely asking the guards if you may go through. This works surprisingly well. Remember what I told you about that pouch filled with candy and how sometimes it's in character, sometimes it's not? This was the one time that it was in character. I was like, can I go across? It's like, and the guard was like, no, I'll give you a piece of candy. And he was like, okay. And then just everybody started role-playing with him afterwards, like us, like giving him money and stuff and favors and like buffs with spells. I think by the end of it, he did come under attack. Everybody just got sick of it and just went to town on him, and he died because he was just one guard. But it was fun while it lasted. Number 29, if you come across an abandoned village filled with fog, then 9 times out of 10, the fog is why it's empty. Could be a mind control fog, flesh-eating fog, or fog used to hide an army of assassins. The first 2 have never happened, but the third one has. That was a fun fight. Number 30, breakfast isn't the most important meal of the day. Every meal is the most important meal of the day. Do not skip a meal just because you've already had breakfast. Like, I seriously hate that wording. Like, in and out of character, saying something is important implies that the other stuff aren't as important. Everything is important when it comes to food. Breakfast might help you get started, but lunch keeps you going, and dinner helps you get a restful sleep. Number 31, speaking of sleep, sleep is important. If you wouldn't go into battle without a weapon, you should never go into battle with half your mind ready to shut down. Like, I know so many people who brag about, oh, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night, but I'm good to go. No, you're freaking not. If you think you're ready to go after 4 hours of sleep, imagine how much of a badass you would be if you had the full 6 or 8 hours of sleep. Come on, man. Number 32, if you need to imprison something or someone for any period of time, keep in mind that the prison doesn't have to be unbreakable. You just have to make a prison that the prisoner doesn't want to leave. So, this was an online roleplay with Larper characters. One of the players needed help to keep his werewolf form from, destroying things. So I said, okay, here's a cage suspended by a rope, and it's over this covered thing. And he's like, what's in it? And I just told him in character, you don't want to know, but I'll explain it to your werewolf buddy when you turn. So, night comes, and the werewolf's like, I'm going to escape from here. And I'm like, don't you even try. The rope is fraying. You move around too much, it'll break, and you'll go down past this very fragile cover and what's below. It's like, what is it? So, I remove the cover for a bit, and it's just black. So black that it sucks in all light. And I tell him, it's a portal gate to the abyss. You don't want to go there. And I put the cover back on, and I say in character, yeah, I don't like looking at it either, which is why I have the cover. But if you land on it, you will just go straight through. And he stopped moving, terrified that he would die if he, struggled too much. And then when day came, I let him down and let him out. It was not a portal to the abyss, though. It was just a big circle painted with Vanta Black. It was just Vanta Black paint. My character, once again, does not trust magic, and he does not have a portal to the abyss in his pocket. He just had mundane Vanta Black, which probably didn't exist in medieval times, but this is a time of magic and portals and whatnot. I'm sure someone would have magicked up a way to make Vanta Black. I really enjoyed that. Okay, number 33. It's okay to be afraid, but don't forget, fear doesn't have to hold you back. Warren is a coward at heart, and he spent like 99% of the time running away from battles when he first started. However, if he saw his friend in danger, he would just rush up and help him as best he could. Actually saved a friend that way, in character. On my second LARP, I think it was, second LARP session. Basically, he was at 0 hit points. He's about to be coup de grace and killed. He was unconscious. I saw the enemy with his big polearm above his head about to give the final strike. I ran in, blocked, pulled out bandages, spent the 10 seconds using my body as a shield to block all the strikes, and I managed to save him that way, and I felt like an absolute badass. And as time went on, with Warren making more and more friends, and to which he would try to protect, he was still a coward, but if there was someone to fight for, he would do his best. And eventually, when he became the leader, the entire Fourth World, his mercenary guild, became his personal responsibility, and he basically never ran after that. He was still terrified, but he never ran away after that. Number 34. In a world where mind control, shapeshifters, and curses exist, if someone you know is acting oddly, make a reference to something you've been a part of, but purposely make a mistake with one detail. If they don't pick up on the mistake, then it's possible that they've been compromised. So, out of character, this has backfired before. I made a reference to a battle that my friend has never been in, and they said, yeah, I remember that battle. I'm like, oh, they're a shapeshifter. The problem with this is that they were like, hang on, he was thinking, Warren just made a reference to a battle that I've never been in. I'm going to pretend to agree, but I know for a fact that Warren's never been in that battle, and neither have I. He must be a shapeshifter. Yeah, that backfired horribly, so don't actually do this one, okay? Number 35. You don't have to make friends with people you work with, but it's very important that you don't make enemies of them either. My character Warren has made lots of friends. And like I said, he was the leader of his guild. The problem was, a lot of the people in the guild did not like each other, in or out of character in some cases. Look, I love you guys, and if you're watching this, no offense, but some of you were petulant man-children. I am not your dad. I was your leader in character, but out of character, I'm just another player. Guys, come on. Get along, for the love of God. It was very frustrating sometimes. It's like, come on, we're on the same side, guys. Let's try to get along, okay? It's very frustrating. There are stories I can tell. I'll for the interest of time, I'll just continue with the list. Number 36. Killing all witnesses is dumb and only works if the witnesses can't come back to life, if you won't implicate yourself at a later date, or see if scrying magic doesn't exist. Yeah, no, murdering people in games where they can respawn just doesn't work. A lot of LARPs get around this by saying, hey, you lose the last minute of your memories when you die. So that helps murder mysteries become a mystery again. It's not always perfect, mind you, but it helps a lot. Number 37. A war cry can take away the element of surprise. Don't do it. If the enemy is intimidated by you shouting at them, then they'd be just as terrified by being killed by a sudden attack. That said, if you want to distract people, this is fine. And there is a bit of an addendum to this. It's really good for morale, and it can be used as a really good signal to charge. So even if it doesn't work as a thing, even if it takes away the element of surprise, the extra coordination, the extra morale that it provides more than outweighs what you lose from a surprise. And, you know, some people are still surprised if you manage to hit them before they can react, even with the war cry. Number 38. Removing an otherwise indestructible enemy from the battlefield is just as good as killing them in most cases. I think I mentioned this before in a previous video. Sometimes it takes 30 to 60 seconds for an enemy to respawn. If you can stall them for that amount of time or longer, then congratulations, you've disabled them. Number 39, the strength of a good adventurer is their ability to try a number of solutions instead of just one. If you have a way of attempting a solution without dying or incapacitating yourself, then there's no reason not to try all the solutions. Number 40, when fighting a mage, try to surround them, but try not to get grouped up too much. That's just asking for the entire group to be set on fire. It's getting very self-explanatory. Number 41, if you're looking around a corner to spy something dangerous, try not to use your head. Try to use something reflective like a really polished bit of steel like a sword. This is more relevant in D&D rather than LARP, because in LARP, your swords will look something like this. It's made of foam. It's not reflective at all, as you can see. That said, in some LARPs, depending on where you go and how it's set up, sometimes you'll have a imaginary wall marked out by using like sports markers in the sometimes there'll be a bit of rope on the ground to represent a wall or a bridge, in which case I would say, yes, use your foam sword as if it was a reflective surface to look around a corner and such like that. Number 42, never aim for people's heads or sensitive organs between the legs. Something about the magic in inertia makes it end badly for everyone involved. You'd think that would mean wearing a helmet is useless, but the same magic mention makes you evenly tough regardless of where the armor is distributed. This is a meta thing, like, so in the LARP rules, if you hit someone in the crotch or the head, that's obviously disallowed, and I'm not sure I can't remember if it was enforced by the rules or not at the time, but the polite thing to do would be, oh, I hit you in the head, I will take a death. I'm dead now. Sorry about hitting you in the head. I didn't mean to. And then, walk going off of the field because you're dead. And of course, wearing more armor just makes you tough. If I get hit in the bare hand, I still take the same amount of damage if I get hit here on the armored bit. If I get hit in the head, like assuming headshots are allowed, in the head or whatever, same amount of damage. The LARP I'm currently going to, however, has made it a rule that you take more damage if you get hit in the body area, either the back or this bit, compared to be hitting on the limbs. So you do actually, in those cases where you don't have a sword and shield, want to be hit in the limbs more because you take less damage. I do like that rule. Number 43, never threaten people unless you can carry out said threat. If you're unwilling to carry it out, it might as well not be a threat at all. Number 44, don't go out of your ways to make enemies. You'll have enough to deal with by default. Feels like I'm repeating myself on some of this advice, but it's important enough that I feel that I have to make it a point again and again and again. Number 45, in my original guide to adventuring, I mentioned not to do any blood or soul sacrifice type stuff. It should go without saying that virgin sacrifices are included too. Now, fun thing, Warren actually does break some of these rules a bit every now and then. For example, there was a purity ritual that required the blood of a virgin, right? Warren volunteered for that, and he's like, yeah, I'm technically a virgin, guys. So we can do this purity ritual and save everyone now, I guess. And I thought that was hilarious. Number 46. Always have a backup weapon. Always have a backup weapon. Have a backup weapon. And finally, don't have too many backup weapons. It gets heavy and cumbersome, and sometimes it'll be hard to get the backup weapon out of its holster before you can use it. So, Warren has a long sword, a short sword, a little one-handed Warhammer Warpick type thingy, and he has a throwing knife. So, he's got his normal weapon, his backup weapon, his backup weapon, and his backup weapon. This is, once again, personal preference sort of thing. You don't have to have that many weapons. But yeah, no, I have found personally that having too many backup weapons, like I said, can get cumbersome. It can be hard to move around in, hard to carry, and if you need to grab it, it can be hard, especially if it's tucked away in a secure way. Number 47, if someone pauses and asks, "Are you sure?" Be sure to pause and consider your next actions very carefully. This is most relevant in D&D style games if the DM asks you, "Are you sure?" because you want to just, take a moment and think about it. What's going on here? This is most helpful in turn-based games. Tip number 48, if you need to stall for time, ask, "Are you sure?" This has helped me quite a few times in LARP. Someone's about to attack me, and I can't think of anything else. I'm on 1 hit point, about to die. I go, "Hey, are you sure you want to do that?" And they were like, "What? Why?" That buys me at least a few seconds to come up with either something else or to wait for an ally to come and, help and save me. Doesn't always work, mind you. Sometimes you'll be like, "Are you sure?" "Oh, I'm dead now." Yeah, some people just do not care. It's hilarious, though. Number 49, never piss off anyone who handles your food and drink. Good tip for real life. Number 50, don't underestimate a halfling or anything seemingly weaker than yourself. So, in one of the LARPs I had gone to, they allowed kids to play, but they were only allowed to play hobbits or halflings, if you want to be legally appropriate. Some of them can be pretty ferocious fighters, and combined with the rule that you're not supposed to hit people's heads, you have to be super, super careful with actually hitting them because, well, their head is much lower, and your normal swinging range when you're hitting an adult is, about here or so. But if you're fighting a kid, what you're used to suddenly has to go much lower. So you have to forget some of your muscle memory unless you're used to fighting halflings and kids. Number 51, being a superior fighter doesn't help in any fight if you're not aware of the other fighter. In case I wasn't clear, use ambushes, sneak attacks, and other underhand methods for fighting a superior foe. So Warren is a very knight-like figure, but he himself is not actually a knight, despite all appearances, and he has never claimed to be one. He doesn't like the concept of honor, that you only have to fight a specific way. The way he sees it, honor is just an excuse to feel good about killing someone, and he doesn't even like killing people at all. So, in that way, even though he doesn't like the idea of being honorable, he himself is pretty honorable in of himself, in a weird kind of way. Number 52, always loot the enemy in case of useful items. For some reason, minions of boss-like monsters often carry around items useful for defeating bosses in the first place. So, maybe the minions had these items, and the fact that they're loyal to the boss is why they're allowed to even carry these items, or maybe it's not even an item, but something a part of the minion's body that they need to use to defeat the boss. This was very common in the LARPs I have gone to. Number 53, on the subject of boss-like monsters, killing the minions first is often the way to go. The context, method, and specifics change based on said monsters. Number 54, if you're trapped in a puzzle-like dungeon with magic doors, more often than not there's a monster around that will drop a key. Number 55, I didn't think this rule was necessary to put on paper, but don't touch, take, or buy cursed items. For the love of God, if you must move or obtain one, please use a thick container and do not physically touch the damn thing in the first place. Number 56, if you treat someone badly, don't be surprised when they start acting like the thing you're treating them as. This is a very real-life piece of advice as well. Don't do it. Number 57, evil is often selfish and self-serving, which makes them easy to bargain with. Be careful when doing so, but feel free to try. They will often at least hear you out. I mean, this is a very common trope. Terry Pratchett, the author, describes it way better than I do. But if a good guy is attacking you, then they've got it in their head that it's the right thing to do. If a bad guy is attacking you, it's because they think it'll benefit them somehow. If you can offer them an alternative that will benefit them even more, then they will take it. If you're an evil person and you're trying to give an alternative to the good guy, they'll still think You're bad, I should take you down. The best you can do is say, hey, I'm the lesser of two evils. I will help you. But the problem is with that is if they believe you're evil, they'll believe you're not trustworthy and they'll still take you out anyways and then go after the bigger of two evils, even if they believe you. If someone uses the phrase, you've made a powerful enemy this day, then they probably have had lots of practice saying the phrase. Not real advice, more an observation. Number 59. Try not to carry food with you unless it's in a sealed safe container. A wild, hungry animal can smell even the smallest bit of jerky. Number 60. You don't have to make a list of enemies. If you need to write their names down to remember them, then clearly you didn't hate them enough to really... Okay, that's not how it's written. It's written as, then clearly you don't hate them enough. Yeah, don't make a list of enemies. You're probably going to forget them, in which case there's no point in them being on the list in the end. Number 61, trust is relative, meaning you can trust everyone. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can trust your friends to have your back in a fight. You can trust a thief to steal. Trusting everyone doesn't mean that you're letting your guard down. It just means you know how they're going to act. That's what trust is. Number 62. Someone in ancient times really liked memory games and putting them into every puzzle trap in Adrosia. If you find a puzzle trap that requires you step on a specific set of platforms in a specific combination, then note that they seem to exhibit the following infuriating traits. Number 1. Jumping over them all to avoid pressing down on them results in death. Using a sword or other extendable object to push/test the traps do not work. Using an unconscious body to navigate traps only lasts so long as the body isn't destroyed by said trap. Yeah, no, I think the jumping over them, using objects to test them, weren't originally part of the designs of these puzzles and traps. I think it was just the game masters not being creative enough and really needing them to pad out the times of the game sometimes. That's my personal theory. I could be wrong. Who knows? Number 63. Do not drink the blood, sweat, or bodily fluids of your enemies. You don't know where they've been. I mean, don't drink blood, sweat, or tears full stop. This goes double for souls or any source of powers larger than your head. You will explode, have your mind warped, or your soul destroyed. Number 64. To get more out of a deal, ensure that the other side will have a vested interest in protecting you or seeing you succeed in said deal. If someone gets you to enchant an item, for example, it will require you to have uninterrupted time while performing the ritual, and thus, by default, the other side has a vested interest in guarding you, even if that wasn't part of the contract to begin with. When taking food from someone suspicious, don't accept or eat it. If they themselves eat it, that's not a guarantee that the food isn't poison. It just means that they're immune, don't care for the consequences, or have the antidote. Note that something poisonous to a human might not be poison to an elf. This was just Warren being paranoid. I've never been poisoned in character by eating something anyone has offered before. It's just, like I said, Warren's a paranoid bugger sometimes. Number 66. Be careful who you make friends with. You don't have to make them an enemy, but you have to ask yourself what a friendship with certain people would involve. Compare with Rule 35, which is don't make enemies. Number 67. Just because you hate something doesn't mean you can't make use of it. For example, I, Warren Teary, personally hate magic, but that doesn't stop me from using enchantments and being friendly with mages. Note, I state that I make use of them, not abuse them. There is a difference. Respect the things you hate. I mean, this is important. Don't abuse people. I mean, this isn't just a LARP thing. It's an everyday thing, really. Number 68. Guarding/escorting trade caravans might seem like boring work, but they are also consistent and give you a chance to make friends with the merchants that hire you. Such contacts can lead to either discounts or more work. This is great roleplay fodder for just anyone, really. If you're not in an immediate LARP, just having a roleplay a text only thing. This is just a good backdrop for that sort of thing because you can just talk. It's like, oh, we're on the road, nothing's happening. We can chat to each other. It's also great for DMs and dungeon masters. Like, oh yeah, you put them all on a caravan. It's a good alternative to saying you all meet in the bar. You can just say you're all in a trade caravan. Extra 50 experience points tell me why you're in it. You could be guarding it, you could be friends with the people in it, you could be traveling to the next town and you're just coming along for the ride essentially. It's a perfect good excuse for a bunch of adventurers to be seen with each other without having to actually drink. Anyways, that was Warren's guide to adventuring, more specifically, the second guide to adventuring. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have any tips and tricks for adventurers like myself, please put them in the comments. I'll see you all next time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that usual stuff. And bye-bye.